Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the HSS Defiance and watched the stars through the main screen. The ship moved slowly through the Kepler sector, its sensors searching for rare metals and minerals on nearby planets. Jake had been doing this job for 5 years now, and he loved the quiet peace of deep space. The Defiance was not a big ship, but it was home to 43 humans who worked together like a family. Lisa Parks sat at her station in the engine room, checking power levels and fuel consumption. She was the best engineer Jake had ever worked with, always finding ways to make their old ship run better than it should. Her fingers moved across the control panel as she made small changes to keep everything running smooth. The engines hummed with a steady rhythm that told her all was well. On the weapons deck, Ryan Torres cleaned and checked their defense systems. Most people thought the Defiance was just a mining ship, but Ryan knew better. Every human ship carried weapons because space was dangerous. Pirates, hostile aliens, and unknown threats could appear anywhere. Ryan made sure their guns were ready even though they had not fired a shot in anger for 2 years. Dr. Amanda Cross worked in the medical bay, updating health records and checking supplies. She was responsible for keeping the crew healthy during their long missions. Amanda had trained as both a doctor and a scientist, which made her valuable on exploration missions. She could treat injuries and also study any new life forms they might find. The crew did not know they were being watched. 3 ships hung in the darkness behind a large asteroid, their black holes almost invisible against the empty space. The ships belonged to the Zephyrian Empire, a race of warriors who had controlled this part of the galaxy for hundreds of years. They were proud and strong, with blue-gray skin and sharp teeth that showed when they smiled. Commander Vextala studied the human ship through his scanner. The Defiance looked weak and slow compared to his sleek hunters. His ships were built for speed and killing, with plasma cannons that could cut through most armor like hot knives through butter. The human ship seemed to have only basic shields and a few small guns for protection. Vextala had been hunting humans for 3 months now. His government wanted to know more about these new aliens who had started exploring Zephyrian space. The humans claimed they came in peace, looking only for trade and resources, but Vextala did not trust them. Every species said they came in peace until they were strong enough to take what they wanted by force. The Zephyrian commander had captured 2 human ships before this one. Both had surrendered quickly when faced with superior firepower. The humans seemed to value their lives more than their pride, which Vextala saw as a sign of weakness. True warriors would rather die than give up without a fight. His first officer, Sub-Commander Crickstar, moved to his side and spoke in their harsh native language. The human ship was alone and far from help. Its communication signals showed it was focused on scanning planets, not watching for enemies. This would be an easy capture. Vextala smiled, showing his sharp teeth. He had studied human ships and found them to be poorly designed for combat. They wasted space on comfort areas like kitchens and recreation rooms instead of weapons and armor. Their engines were built for long-distance travel, not for quick escapes. Most importantly, humans seemed to panic when attacked, making mistakes that experienced warriors could exploit. The 3 Zephyrian ships moved out from behind the asteroid like hunting cats stalking prey. Their engines were nearly silent, using technology that bent light around their hulls to make them hard to see. They approached the Defiance from 3 different directions, planning to surround it before the humans knew they were there. Jake Morrison was reading reports from the planet scanning team when alarms started ringing throughout the ship. The main screen flashed red as the computer detected incoming ships. 3 contacts appeared on the tactical display, moving fast toward the Defiance from different angles. Lisa Parks' voice came over the intercom from the engine room. REPORTING. That unknown ships were targeting them with weapon locks. Her voice was calm, but Jake could hear the tension underneath. They were too far from any human outpost to call for help, and the attacking ships were already too close to run from. Ryan Torres was already at his weapon controls, powering up their defensive systems. The Defiance had 4 plasma cannons and a missile launcher, enough to fight off pirates, but not much against military ships. He could see on his screen that the enemy vessels were much larger and better armed than anything they had faced before. Dr. Amanda Cross secured her medical supplies and prepared for casualty. She had treated wounded from pirate attacks before, But this felt different. The approaching ships moved with the discipline of trained military units, not the chaotic attacks of criminals looking for easy money. The first plasma bolts lit up the darkness as the Zephyrian ships opened fire. Their weapons were precise and controlled, aimed at the Defiance's engines and communication array. They wanted to disable the human ship, not destroy it. Disabled ships meant prisoners and salvage, both valuable to the Zephyrian war machine. Jake felt the ship shake as the enemy fire found its mark. The lights flickered and several control panels sparked as overloaded circuits failed. The main engines stuttered and their speed dropped quickly. Their communication system went dead, cutting them off from any chance of calling for help. Lisa Park worked frantically in the engine room as damage reports flooded her screens. The primary power grid was failing and backup systems were struggling to handle the load. Smoke filled the air as burned electronics released their acrid smell. She rerouted power through secondary lines, trying to keep life support and basic systems online. The Zephyrian ships closed in like wolves surrounding wounded prey. Their hulls were sleek and predatory, designed to inspire fear in their enemies. Weapon ports glowed with ready energy as they prepared to deliver the final blows that would force the humans to surrender. Commander Vextella opened a communication channel to the human ship. His voice was harsh and commanding as he spoke in accented English, demanding immediate surrender. He promised that cooperation would mean quick deaths for the warriors and slavery for the useful ones. Resistance would mean slow torture for everyone. Aboard, Jake Morrison looked around his damaged bridge at his crew. Their faces showed fear, but also something else, something that the Zephyrian commander had not expected to see. There was anger in their eyes, and a cold determination that spoke of deeper strengths not yet revealed. Jake Morrison stood silent for a long moment after the Zephyrian demand for surrender echoed through the bridge. His crew watched him, waiting for orders that would decide if they lived or died. The captain's face was calm, but his eyes held a hardness that his people recognized. It was the look humans got when they stopped being civilized and remembered what they really were underneath. The Zephyrians had made their first mistake by assuming human ships were built like alien vessels. Most species in the galaxy designed their craft for specific purposes with no wasted space or redundant systems. A warship was a warship, a cargo hauler was a cargo hauler, and a science vessel was a science vessel. But humans built everything with one simple rule in mind: anything that could go wrong would go wrong. So plan for it. Lisa Park's fingers flew across her control panels as she activated systems the Zephyrians had never seen on their scans. The Defiance was not just a mining ship with some weapons bolted on. It was a human ship, which meant every single component was designed to serve multiple purposes, and every critical system had at least two backups hidden in places that seemed impossible. The primary power grid was damaged, but Lisa simply switched to the secondary grid, which was actually stronger than the main one. When that showed stress from the increased load, she brought online the tertiary grid that most aliens would consider a wasteful luxury. The lights stopped flickering and came back to full brightness, making the Zephyrian weapons officers blink in confusion at their sensor readings. Jake opened the ship's internal communication system, and his voice carried to every corner of the Defiance. There was something different in his tone now, something that made the hair stand up on the necks of anyone who heard it. He spoke slowly and clearly, telling his crew that they were going to show these aliens what happened when someone threatened a human ship far from home. Ryan Torres smiled as he heard the captain's words. His hands moved to weapon controls that the Zephyrians had not detected because they were hidden inside what looked like sensor arrays and cargo containers. The Defiance appeared to have only basic defensive armaments, but appearances were deceiving. When humans were involved, every square meter of the ship's hull could become a weapon if needed. Dr. Amanda Crass left her medical station and walked through the corridors of the ship, checking on crew members who had been injured in the initial attack. But she was not just treating wounds. Her trained eye was studying the damage patterns and the way the enemy weapons worked. Amanda was thinking like a scientist, gathering data that could be used against their attackers. The Defiance's engine suddenly roared back to life with a sound that made the Zephyrian pilots pause in surprise. How was a disabled ship moving? Again, their scans showed massive damage to the human vessel's propulsion systems. Yet it was accelerating toward the nearest Zephyrian hunter with what could only be described as aggressive intent. Commander Vextella stared at his displays in growing confusion. The human ship should have been crippled and helpless, ready to surrender or be destroyed. Instead, it was moving faster than before, and new energy signatures were appearing all across its hull. His weapons officer reported that the Defiance was powering up systems that had not been there moments before. The first sign that something had gone very wrong came when sections of the Defiance's hull began sliding apart to reveal weapon ports that had been completely hidden. What looked like simple hull plating opened like flower petals to expose missile launchers that had been invisible to Zephyrian scans. Sensor domes rotated and extended, revealing themselves to be point defense guns ready to fill space with deadly fire. Lisa Park worked with calm efficiency as she brought more and more systems online. The Defiance was designed using modular human engineering principles, which meant it could reconfigure itself for different mission requirements. Right now, she was switching from exploration mode to combat mode, and the transformation was something to see. Cargo bays opened to reveal additional power generators that had been disguised as mining equipment. Scanning arrays extended and reconfigured themselves into targeting systems with capabilities that exceeded most military vessels. The ship's computer network expanded as hidden processors came online, giving them computational power that could track and target dozens of enemies simultaneously. Jake Morrison watched his ship transform around him and felt a cold satisfaction. The Zephyrians thought they were hunting a weak science vessel, but they had actually cornered something far more dangerous. Human ships were not designed to be pretty or efficient. They were designed to survive and fight no matter what the galaxy threw at them. Ryan Torres activated the first weapon system and felt the familiar vibration as the targeting computer locked onto the nearest Zephyrian ship. His screens showed dozens of firing solutions, each one calculated to maximum effect. The humans were not going to just shoot back. They were going to demonstrate why their species had fought its way to the top of the food chain on a planet where everything tried to kill everything else. The Defiance fired its first volley, and the Zephyrians learned that human weapons were nothing like what they expected. Instead of simple energy beams or plasma bolts, the humans used everything at once. Kinetic rounds accelerated to incredible speeds, slammed into Zephyrian shields, while explosive missiles separated into clusters of smaller warheads that attacked from multiple angles. Electromagnetic pulse weapons fired invisible beams that made Zephyrian electronics stutter and fail. Experimental energy weapons that bent space itself created gravitational anomalies that pulled the enemy ships off course. The humans did not just have better technology, they had stranger technology, based on principles that the Zephyrians did not understand. Dr. Amanda Cross analyzed the data streaming from the ship's sensors as the battle began. She studied the composition of Zephyrian hull armor, the frequency of their energy shields, and the design of their life support systems. Within minutes, she was developing countermeasures that could exploit weaknesses the aliens did not even know they had. Commander Vexthala watched his carefully planned ambush turn into chaos as the human ship unleashed firepower that should have been impossible for a vessel of its size. His hunters were fast and maneuverable, but speed meant nothing when the humans could fill entire cubic kilometers of space with overlapping fields of fire that made evasion impossible. The Zephyrian commander opened a communication channel to his government, trying to report what was happening. But the humans had already hacked their communication systems and were feeding false information back to the Zephyrian fleet. Instead of calling for help, Vexthala found himself ordering other Zephyrian ships to attack positions where no enemies existed. Jake Morrison's voice cut through the static as he opened his own communication channel to the Zephyrian ships. His tone was conversational and almost friendly, but there was something underneath it that made the alien warriors feel cold fear for the first time in their lives. The captain explained that the Defiance was already transmitting the location and tactical data of the Zephyrian ships too. 12 other human vessels currently operating in the sector. The Zephyrians had come to hunt one weak prey animal, but they had walked into a trap set by creatures that turned hunting into an art form. The isolated ambush was becoming a sector-wide tactical engagement, and the humans were coordinating their response across light years of space using communication systems the aliens had not known existed. Lisa Park's voice came over the intercom. Reporting that all combat systems were now online and operating at full capacity. The Defiance was no longer pretending to be a harmless research vessel. It had become what humans called a monster, and it was ready to show the Zephyrians exactly what that meant. The first Zephyrian ship to die was the smallest of the three hunters, a fast attack vessel that had been trying to circle behind the Defiance for a killing shot. Ryan Torres tracked its movement with cold precision and unleashed a weapon that the aliens had never seen before. Instead of a single projectile or energy beam, the human ship fired what looked like a small cloud of metallic dust that expanded as it traveled through space. The Zephyrian pilot tried to dodge, but the cloud was too large and moving too fast. When it struck his ship's shields, each tiny particle carried enough kinetic energy to punch through the protective barrier like bullets through paper. The hunter's hull was shredded in seconds, its atmosphere venting into space in frozen crystals that sparkled like deadly snow in the starlight. Commander Vextella watched his subordinate die and felt something he had never experienced before in combat: helplessness. The humans were not fighting like any enemy he had studied. They used weapons that violated basic principles of space warfare, turning simple physics into instruments of destruction that seemed almost magical in their effectiveness. Lisa Park rerouted more power to the weapon systems as she monitored the battle from her station in the engine room. The Defiance was pushing its technology beyond normal limits, but human engineering was designed for exactly this kind of abuse. Every component was built with safety margins that other species would consider wasteful, allowing the ship to operate at levels that would destroy alien vessels. The second Zephyrian ship tried to use its speed advantage to stay ahead of the human weapons, but Jake Morrison had anticipated this tactic. The Defiance fired a spread of missiles that did not try to intercept the enemy directly. Instead, they positioned themselves in the alien ship's path and detonated in sequence, creating a wall of expanding plasma that the Zephyrian pilot flew directly into. Dr. Amanda Cross studied the readings from the destroyed ships and made a discovery that chilled her blood. The Zephyrian life support systems used a gas mixture that was highly flammable in the presence of certain human-made compounds. She quickly synthesized an aerosol weapon that could turn the enemy ship's own atmosphere into an explosive and sent the formula to Ryan Torres for immediate deployment. The remaining Zephyrian vessel, Vextella's flagship, was the largest and most heavily armed of the three. But size and weapons meant nothing when the enemy could rewrite the rules of combat in real time. The human ship began using tactics that seemed impossible, firing missiles that changed direction multiple times and energy beams that curved around obstacles like living things. Ryan Torres was no longer just operating weapons. He was conducting a symphony of destruction that used every principle of physics as an instrument. He fired projectiles that used gravity wells to accelerate beyond their normal limits, creating impacts that released energy comparable to small nuclear weapons. He used the magnetic field of a nearby planet to guide energy beams in directions that defied the straight-line expectations of Zephyrian defensive systems. Commander Vextella tried to retreat, but found his escape routes blocked by fields of micromines that the humans had somehow deployed while fighting. The tiny explosives were invisible to normal sensors, but deadly enough to cripple his engines if he tried to fly through them. He was trapped in a cage made of human ingenuity and murderous creativity. Jake Morrison opened another communication channel, this time broadcasting to the entire Zephyrian fleet that was rushing to respond to Vextella's distress call. His voice was calm and professional as he explained the tactical situation, with the detached interest of a teacher giving a lesson. The humans had identified the location and capabilities of 17 Zephyrian ships and were prepared to engage them all simultaneously. The aliens learned that human vessels did not fight alone. They were connected by quantum communication, networks that allowed instant coordination across impossible distances. Every human ship in the sector was now aware of the Zephyrian threat and was moving to intercept them with precision that spoke of decades of tactical planning and preparation. Lisa Park brought additional systems online that the Zephyrians had not known existed. The Defiance extended sensor arrays that could track objects moving at near light speed and computational systems that could calculate firing solutions for targets that would not exist for several minutes. The humans were not just fighting in 3 dimensions. They were fighting across time itself, predicting where their enemies would be and placing weapons there in advance. Dr. Mandacross had moved beyond treating wounded crew members and was now actively participating in the combat as a weapons designer. Her medical knowledge of Zephyrian physiology was being used to create targeted biological agents that could incapacitate enemy crews without damaging their ships. She worked with the cold efficiency of someone who understood that mercy in space meant being strong enough to choose when to show it. The Defiance began using the environment itself as a weapon, something that had never occurred to the Ryan Torres fired specially designed missiles into a nearby asteroid field, breaking the space rocks into fragments that were then accelerated using magnetic fields and gravity manipulation. The result was a devastating barrage of high projectiles that turned the empty space around the enemy ship into a killing field. Commander Vextella watched his shields fail under the relentless assault and realized that his proud warrior race had made a fundamental error in judgment. They had assumed that humans were weak because they preferred peace. But peace was not weakness when it was backed by the capacity for overwhelming violence. The humans had not attacked the Zephyrians because they chose not to, not because they could not. Jake Morrison's tactical displays showed the positions of all human ships in the sector as they moved to surround the Zephyrian fleet like wolves closing in on trapped prey. The aliens had superior numbers and individual firepower, but the humans had something more valuable. They had learned to fight as a single organism with dozens of bodies spread across light years of space. The Defiance stopped firing for a moment, and space became eerily quiet except for the hiss of venting atmosphere from damaged ships. Jake Morrison's voice filled the silence as he made an offer to the surviving Zephyrians. They could surrender now and be treated with the dignity that warriors deserve, or they could continue fighting and learn what humans did to enemies who threatened their people. Commander Vexella looked at his damaged ship and his dead comrades floating in the void around him. His weapons were depleted, his shields were failing, and more human ships were arriving every minute. The ambush had become a trap, and he was the one caught in it. For the first time in his military career, the proud Zephyrian commander considered the possibility that his government had gravely underestimated the species they had chosen to hunt. Lisa Park watched her screens as the enemy ship's power output dropped to minimal levels. The Zephyrians were shutting down their weapons and engines in the universal signal of surrender. But she kept all human systems at full combat readiness because she knew that the real test was not winning the battle, but deciding what to do with victory. Ryan Torres kept his targeting systems locked on the enemy vessel, but held his fire as ordered. His hands remained ready on the weapon controls because humans had learned that mercy without strength was just another word for stupidity. They would accept the surrender, but they would also be prepared to resume the slaughter if the aliens proved to be less honorable than they claimed. Dr. Amanda Cross began preparing medical supplies to treat wounded Zephyrians because that was what humans did, even to enemies who had tried to kill them. But she also prepared sedatives and restraints because mercy did not mean trust. The aliens would live, but they would live as prisoners until the humans decided what to do with them. The Zephyrian surrender was not the end of the battle, but the beginning of something that would change the balance of power in the entire sector. Jake Morrison did not simply accept the enemy's submission and call it finished. Instead, he began demonstrating why humans had become the dominant species on a planet where almost everything was designed to kill them, and why that same ruthless intelligence made them dangerous beyond imagination when applied to warfare. Commander Vextella found his ship surrounded by human vessels that had seemingly appeared from nowhere. The Defiance was no longer alone in the void. 3 more ships had arrived within minutes of each other, moving with the coordinated precision of a pack that had been hunting together for years. Their hulls bore the markings of different human organizations: a cargo lair, a deep space research vessel, and what looked like a simple passenger transport. But appearances were deceiving when humans were involved. The cargo hauler extended weapon arrays that were larger than anything mounted on Zephyrian warships. The research vessel deployed sensor equipment that could track objects across multiple star systems simultaneously. The passenger transport opened to reveal launch bays filled with small fighters that moved like angry insects around the larger ships. Lisa Park coordinated with the engineering teams on the other human vessels, sharing power and computational resources across the small fleet. The ships linked their systems together using quantum entanglement communication, creating a single massive war machine that operated with multiple bodies but one mind. The Zephyrians had thought they were fighting for separate opponents, but they were actually facing one enormously powerful entity. Ryan Torres found himself in command of weapons systems that spanned multiple ships and covered millions of cubic kilometers of space. Every human vessel in the area had become a firing platform under his control, turning the empty void around the Zephyrian fleet into a three-dimensional killing field that could be activated instantly if the aliens showed any sign of treachery. Dr. Amanda Cross established communication with the medical officers on the other human ships, sharing her analysis of Zephyrian biology and physiology. Within minutes, every human vessel was equipped with weapons designed specifically to incapacitate alien crews without damaging their ships. The humans were not interested in destruction for its own sake, but they were prepared to be very selective about what they chose to preserve. Jake Morrison opened a wideband communication channel that reached not just the Zephyrian ships in the immediate area, but every alien vessel within a dozen light. His voice was calm and conversational as he explained the tactical situation to anyone who might be listening. The Zephyrians had attacked a human ship, believing it to be weak and isolated, but they had actually triggered a response from the entire human presence in the sector. The aliens learned that human exploration fleets did not operate like other species expeditions. While most races sent their ships out individually or in small groups, humans moved through space like migrating wolves, with every vessel in constant communication with every other vessel regardless of distance. An attack on one human ship was an attack on all human ships, and the response was coordinated across impossible distances with terrifying efficiency. Commander Vexilla received reports from his subordinates throughout the Zephyrian fleet, and each report was worse than the last. Human ships were appearing in star systems that the Zephyrians had considered secure, moving with purpose and intelligence that spoke of detailed advanced planning. The aliens realized that they had not just attacked a mining vessel, they had declared war on a species that had been preparing for exactly this moment. Lisa Park accessed the navigation databases of all human ships in the sector and began plotting intercept courses for the remaining Zephyrian vessels. The humans knew the location and heading of every alien ship within 6 light years, and they were using that information to set up ambushes that would make the first attack look gentle by comparison. The Zephyrian military commanders tried to coordinate their response, but found their communication systems compromised by human electronic warfare specialists who had been monitoring alien transmissions for months. Every order was intercepted, analyzed, and countered before it could be implemented. The humans were not just winning the battle, they were controlling the information that shaped how the battle was fought. Ryan Torres received targeting data from human reconnaissance drones that had been deployed throughout Zephyrian space without the aliens ever knowing they were there. The tiny machines had been watching and learning, building detailed maps of alien defensive positions and cataloging the capabilities of every ship in their fleet. When the time came to fight, the humans already knew everything they needed to know about their enemies. Dr. Amanda Cross analyzed the psychological profiles of Zephyrian military personnel that had been compiled by human intelligence operatives. She understood how the alien warriors thought, what motivated them, and what would break their spirit most effectively. Her medical training had taught her how to heal, but the same knowledge could be used to inflict precisely targeted suffering when necessary. Jake Morrison began implementing what humans called the demonstration protocol, a carefully planned series of actions designed to show potential enemies exactly what they were capable of when provoked. The goal was not to destroy the Zephyrian fleet, but to make sure that every alien who survived would carry the message back to their government with perfect clarity. The human fleet divided into hunting groups that surrounded individual Zephyrian ships with overwhelming force. Each alien vessel found itself outnumbered and outgunned, facing weapons that could tear them apart in seconds but choosing not to do so. The message was clear. The humans could kill them all whenever they wanted, but they were choosing mercy. For now, Commander Vexilla watched his proud fleet reduced to helpless prisoners and began to understand the magnitude of his mistake. The Zephyrians had ruled this sector through military superiority for centuries. but they had never faced an enemy that could match their strength while exceeding their intelligence. The humans were not just stronger, they were smarter, and they had been planning for this confrontation long before the first shot was fired. Lisa Park established control over the life support systems of the captured Zephyrian ships, demonstrating that human technology could penetrate alien defenses without the aliens even knowing it was happening. The Zephyrians breathed human-controlled air and lived under human-monitored conditions, completely dependent on the mercy of creatures they had tried to hunt. Ryan Torres kept his weapons trained on the alien vessels, but did not fire, showing a restraint that was somehow more terrifying than violence would have been. The Zephyrians understood that they lived only because the humans chose to let them live, and that choice could be revoked at any moment if they proved unworthy of the mercy they had been shown. Dr. Amanda Cross began treating wounded Zeph with the same skill and care she would show to human patients, but her actions carried a message that went beyond simple medical ethics. The humans were demonstrating that they could be compassionate even to enemies who had tried to kill them, but compassion was a privilege that had to be earned through good behavior. Jake Morrison addressed the captured Zephyrian commanders with the quiet authority of someone who held their lives in his hand. He explained that this battle was not about conquest or revenge, but about establishing the rules that would govern future interactions between their species. The humans were offering the Zephyrians a choice. They could learn to coexist peacefully, or they could face the consequences of continued aggression. The alien warriors found themselves confronted by an enemy that combined overwhelming military power with sophisticated psychological warfare and a moral code that was somehow more intimidating than simple brutality. The humans were not monsters that killed for pleasure. They were apex predators that killed with purpose. And they had decided that the Zephyrians were worth more alive than dead. The end of the battle came not with explosions or surrender ceremonies, but with a silence that seemed to stretch across the entire sector. Commander Vextilla found himself standing in the docking bay of his own flagship, watching human soldiers secure his ship with an efficiency that spoke of long practice. These were not conquerors celebrating victory, but professionals completing a job that had required more effort than they had hoped, but less than they had prepared for. Jake Morrison walked through the corridors of the captured Zephyrian vessel with the casual confidence of someone touring a museum. His hands were clasped behind his back, and his expression was thoughtful rather than triumphant. He stopped occasionally to examine alien technology with the interest of an engineer rather than the gloating of a victor, asking questions about design philosophy and manufacturing techniques that revealed a mind more concerned with understanding than dominating. Lisa Park supervised the installation of human control systems throughout the Zephyrian ship, not to steal its technology, but to ensure that it could not be used as a weapon again. Her work was precise and respectful, preserving alien systems wherever possible, while adding safeguards that would prevent future hostile actions. She treated the enemy vessel like a dangerous animal that needed to be caged rather than killed. Ryan Torres examined Zephyrian weapons with professional interest, studying their design and capabilities with the appreciation of one craftsman for another's work. He found their plasma cannons to be elegant and effective within their limitations, but limited by a philosophy that emphasized power over versatility. The aliens built weapons to destroy, while humans built weapons to achieve objectives. Dr. Amanda Cross established a medical facility in the captured ship's cargo bay, treating wounded Zephyrians with the same skill and attention she would give to human patients. Her actions sent a message that transcended species barriers. The humans saw their enemies as beings worthy of medical care rather than objects to be discarded when broken. This simple act of compassion had a greater psychological impact than threats or torture ever could. Commander Vextilla was escorted to what had been his own conference room, where Jake Morrison sat waiting with the relaxed posture of someone conducting a routine business meeting. The human captain offered the alien warrior a chair and refreshments, as if they were colleagues rather than captor and prisoner. This casual treatment was somehow more unsettling than chains or interrogation cells would have been. Jake spoke quietly about the events of the past few hours, analyzing the battle from a tactical perspective that treated both sides as professional military forces rather than heroes and villains. He pointed out where the Zephyrians had made good decisions and where they had made mistakes, offering constructive criticism as if he were debriefing his own officers after a training exercise. The human captain explained that the Zephyrian attack had been based on flawed assumptions about human nature and capabilities. The aliens had studied human ships and concluded that they were weak, but they had failed to understand the philosophy behind human engineering. Every human vessel was designed to survive and fight under the worst possible conditions because humans had learned that the universe was actively trying to kill them. Vextella listened as Jake described human military doctrine with the detached interest of a professor explaining academic theory. Humans did not build weapons to fight the enemies they could see, but to fight the enemies they could imagine. Their technology was designed not for current threats, but for future ones that might be worse than anything they had yet encountered. Lisa Park's voice came over the intercom. REPORTING, that the integration of human control systems was complete. The Zephyrian ship was now effectively a human vessel operated by alien crew members under human supervision. This arrangement would continue until the aliens proved that they could be trusted to operate independently without threatening human interests. Jake explained to Vextella that the humans had no interest in conquering Zephyrian territory or enslaving alien populations. What they wanted was simple: recognition that human ships and human space were protected by a level of military capability that made attacks counterproductive. The demonstration had been designed to make this point without unnecessary destruction or loss of life. The Zephyrian commander found himself facing an enemy that combined overwhelming military superiority with a moral code that was somehow more intimidating than simple brutality. The humans could have killed every alien in the sector and taken their territory by force, but they chose instead to offer a lesson in the consequences of aggression against their people. Ryan Torres provided Vextella with detailed tactical recordings of the battle, explaining how human weapons and strategies had defeated Zephyrian forces. This was not gloating but education, designed to ensure that the alien commander understood exactly what had happened and why. The humans wanted their enemies to learn from the experience rather than simply fear it. Dr. Amanda Cross shared her analysis of Zephyrian biology and technology with the alien medical officers, demonstrating human knowledge of their physiology while also showing how that knowledge could be used to help rather than harm. Her gesture revealed the depth of human intelligence gathering while also offering the possibility of beneficial cooperation. Jake Morrison stood and walked to the conference room's viewing port, looking out at the stars while he spoke about the future relationship between human and Zephyrian space. The Kepler sector was now under human protection, not because they had conquered it, but because they had demonstrated their ability to defend it. Any future attacks on human vessels would be met with responses calibrated to match the level of threat presented. The human captain offered Vextella and his surviving crew members their freedom, but with conditions that would ensure the safety of human ships and personnel. The Zephyrians would return to their government as messengers rather than prisoners, carrying word of human capabilities and intentions to their political and military leaders. Lisa Park supervised the departure of the Zephyrian survivors, ensuring that their ships were functional but monitored. Human tracking devices and communication relays would allow the aliens to travel safely through human space while also ensuring that their movements were known and their intentions were clear. Commander Vextella found himself in the unusual position of owing his life to enemies who had every reason to kill him but chose not to. As his ship limped away from the battle site, he carried with him a message that would change Zephyrian policy toward human space. The proud warrior race had encountered something they had never faced before, an enemy that was stronger than they were, but wise enough to use that strength with restraint. The story of the battle spread through the galaxy like ripples in a pond, growing and changing as it passed from species to species. Some whispered about human ships that could transform themselves into monsters when threatened. Others spoke of a race so technologically advanced that they could predict and counter enemy actions before they were even planned. Jake Morrison returned to his mineral surveys as if nothing had happened. But now other species gave human ships a respectful distance when they encountered them in space. The HSS Defiance continued its peaceful mission of exploration and resource evaluation, its crew going about their daily routines with the quiet satisfaction of people who had done their job well. The Xaverians became a cautionary tale told in military academies across the galaxy, a reminder that appearances could be deceiving when dealing with humans. Warriors who had once been proud of their conquest of the sector now spoke in hushed tones about the species that had made them, realized they were not the apex predators they had believed themselves to be. In the end, the humans had achieved something that pure military victory could never have accomplished. They had established themselves not just as a force to be reckoned with, but as a species that combined strength with wisdom and mercy with justice. The galaxy had learned that humans were dangerous not because they loved to fight, but because they were very good at it when they had to be.